Okay, greeting viewers. Columbia Global Centers Nairobi warmly welcomes both our local and global audience to yet another informative session on a subject that is a key component to healthy, wholesome living. We will be talking about emotional intelligence. This talk will lead to a sequence of conversations as a sequel in order to address issues that will be highlighted by you, our audience, during our Q&A segment. We find it important to address the most pressing needs in our society. Thus, instead of delivering textbook knowledge, we will be keen to note the issues that people are facing and highlighting them here today, pertaining to emotional intelligence, and then we will focus on addressing those subjects. Life today has become quite unpredictable. As much as one would like to act like everything is normal, one is often faced by periods of panic or by an unusual situation which they may not be sure on how to respond. Not only do we have to deal with our own challenges, but we are often faced by situations or incidences where we have to extend some level of support to those around us in order for us to continue thriving as a family, as peers, as colleagues, as friends, and as a society. This session will be presented to you by Columbia Global Centers, Nairobi, in partnership with Albert Migowa. Columbia Global Centers Nairobi is part of 9 regional hubs positioned strategically around the world by Columbia University, which is based in New York. The centers serve as platforms for dialogue and the exchange of knowledge in research, education, as well as public programming. Our speaker today is Albert Migowa. Albert is a trained counseling psychologist and an emotional intelligence coach. As a psychologist, he is able to understand the emotions and feelings of people and thereby able to communicate effectively. Additionally, Albert is a counselor with the Red Cross Society of Kenya. Albert has been involved in mental health projects with nationwide profiles. Some of these projects have been supported by UNICEF, Danish Red Cross, Nairobi Metropolitan Services, European Union, University of Maryland, Ministry of Health here in Kenya, African Medical Research Foundation, AMREF, and United States Aid Agency, USAID, through Afya Jijini program. Currently, Albert is an emotional intelligence facilitator. He is a member of 6 Seconds Emotional Intelligence Network. To date, Albert has facilitated sessions for over 500 individuals. We will post Albert's extended and indeed rich bio on the chat for your reference. Today, we also have Dawood Mayon from Columbia School of Social Work. He will be helping us with the Q&A segment of this session. Before we get started, kindly note, today's program is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. As we proceed, please post your questions, issues, or comments pertaining to emotional intelligence under the Q&A section. This will be critical as it will determine the follow-up episodes. Remember to follow us on social media so that you can stay updated on our upcoming programs. You can do it even now. Our handles are at CGC Nairobi for Facebook and Twitter. Again, CGC Nairobi for Facebook and Twitter. CGC.Nairobi for Instagram. And our YouTube channel is Columbia Global Centers Nairobi. I would now like to welcome our esteemed speaker, Mr. Albert Migowa, to take it from here. Welcome, Albert.
Well, thank you so very much, Pauline. Good morning, good afternoon. happy afternoon, happy lunch, wherever you're in the part of the world. As mentioned, my name is Albert Migoa. I define myself as a wellness creator. So as a wellness creator, I do three things. One, I'm a counseling psychologist. Number two, I do indeed counseling. And thirdly, I'm involved in some aspects of mentorship, both at a national level and regional level in Africa. Now, before we begin the session, I'd like us to start with a small exercise. And it's a very simple one. I'll request all of us to just sit comfortable at 90 degrees and close our eyes. And I'll just ask us to, stay still for about 30 seconds, in which time I'll ask each and every one of us to think about three emotions that they've experienced in the course of the day. And then we can now share some of our emotions on the chat. And at least 2 or 3 people will be able now to tell us how they're feeling physically. So without much ado, let's begin. Let's all be quiet. Let's be still. Let's sit upright. Let's sit upright. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Think about 3 emotions you've experienced since you woke up until now. Think of 3 emotions you've experienced since you woke up until now. I'll give you a minute for that. Okay, you may open your eyes. You may open your eyes. Any reaction to that exercise? Kindly respond in the chat box. Any response? Okay, yes, Grace, you've been happy. Yes, Islam and family meeting. Somebody else? Let's get the responses coming. Thank you, Islam. Thank you, Grace. Overwhelmed. Tina, I see anger, sadness, and hope. Nita, calm, experience, reflect on feelings. Very good. Let's get the responses coming. Margot, angry. David, anxious. Yes, thank you, Sandra. Anxious and excited. Yes, I see happy, fulfilled, and calm, engaged. Thank you, Tobeka. Thank you, Lillian. Yes, thank you, Daewoo. Happy, awesome, just like myself. So the purpose of this exercise is for us to understand and know the value and the importance of our emotions and how our emotions affect us on our day-to-day life and our day-to-day activities. And you realize the emotion you began with, the tone you set, and as far as your emotions are concerned, when you wake up, tends to affect your entire day. So there you go, the need for understanding your emotions and thereby the need for emotional intelligence. So without much ado, I'll just delve into it. So I'll first begin by unpacking what emotions are. So emotions are intense feelings that are linked to situations that are either real or imagined. The intense feelings that are linked to situations that are either real or imagined. Their messages that are signaled to the brain, indicating that a threat or a reward has been identified in the environment. There are messages to the brain signaling a threat or reward has been identified in the environment. Consequently, a physical response then follows. A physical response then follows where one either moves away from the threat or towards the threat. A good example. Imagine you're on your way home from a jog or from a walk, and as you're about to reach, or just a few meters before you reach your gate, you come across a very large snake. You know, what will you do? Many I know would scream, me included, and run to the left or run for safety. So that is a threat. So I'm running away from it. That's number one. The second example, I take example of a child who does a good deed, like a child who finishes his homework or her homework, or a child who cleans his room, or a child who has been of good behavior. And you reward this child either with a sweet or with a very good compliment. The child will tend to want to continue doing that act or that deed for that particular reward. So that is the reward. The snake is the threat. So are we together? Thumbs up if we are. Okay. Now, that's emotions. The second part is intelligence. What is intelligence? So intelligence, this is a term that has been defined differently by different people. And experts have agreed that the word intelligence has got two key components. And they are, one, the ability to learn from experience. And number two, the ability to adapt to your environment. So learning and adaptability. I'll give a scenario. You can imagine, like, I know one thing about Nairobi. Nairobi is one traffic. You can get some really bad traffic. So you can imagine that you tend to wake up a certain time, and that particular time you wake up on your way to work or on your way to do your errands or your business, you come across traffic, okay? If you change your route, it means you have learned. You have learned because you know if you leave at a particular time using that route, you'll meet traffic. So learning has taken place because you realized I cannot use this route, and if I do, I won't get there on time. And as a result, you've adapted. So that's how the learning bit and the adaptability bit comes in. So therefore, now we know what emotions are, we know what intelligence is. So therefore, what is emotional intelligence? Before I define what emotional intelligence is all about, I'll give us a bit of history. Emotional intelligence is a term that was made popular in the mid-90s by a psychologist known as Daniel Goleman in the US. And he wrote a book titled Why EQ, Emotional Intelligence, Matters More Than IQ. So he made it very popular, and they call him the father of modern emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, therefore, means what? Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your emotions and that of other people, so as to understand yourself better, so as to adapt to environment better, so as to have more effective relationships with other people. Others will call it people's smartness or people's skills. Emotional intelligence, also known as EQ, which is emotional quotient, or EI for emotional intelligence, has four components. and I'll use the 4 components by Daniel Goleman, and they include 1, self-awareness, 2, social awareness, 3, self-regulation, 4, relationship management or social skills. So the first one, self-awareness. What is it? Self-awareness concerns itself with being able to accurately sense, identify, understand, and evaluate one's personal feelings. I repeat, self-awareness concerns itself with being able to accurately sense, identify, evaluate, and understand one's feelings. And it has 3 competencies under it, or 3 key features. 1, emotional self-awareness. So emotional self-awareness concerns itself where you're aware of your emotions and the impact it has in your life and how it impacts your life. The second one is accurate self-assessment. An accurate self-assessment concerns itself with being able to understand and know your strengths and your weaknesses. And the third one is self-confidence. And self-confidence here looks at how you're able to understanding and knowing your self-worth, understanding and knowing your self-worth as a person. So what can one do to be self-aware? Are there activities that one can do? The answer is yes. For instance, one is journaling. Journaling is a very good way where you're able now to jot down your feelings, what you're experiencing at any one given time. I know women and ladies are very good at this. It's a habit we men need to adopt, if not already. Secondly, identify feelings associated with the various roles that you play. So for example, as a mother, how does that make you feel? Being a brother, being a sister, of all the roles you play, you write of the feeling associated with that particular role. Another activity that one could do is try to predict how you feel as you go into certain scenarios. So for instance, assuming you're going for a meeting and or rather a party, for instance, and you know you're likely to come across either a group of people or some individuals who maybe have not made you very, very happy. Maybe you fell out in the past, but you're going to meet them. Before you get there, because we are all human, so feelings will always be there. Strong feelings will be there. There's need to figure out how to handle that tension that you have at that point before you actually go in to the venue where those individuals are. So for instance, you may decide to either pass by and visit a friend, or maybe just listen to some music, just to calm you down. Or like myself, I love doing deep breathing exercises that calms me down. So by the time you actually go in and meet those individuals, then you're able to actually emotions that you'll be having at that given time. And therefore, you're able to avoid any conflicts that are likely to arise. The second tier is what I call self-regulation. Now, self-regulation concerns itself with being able to understand and manage your emotions. And it has various aspects as well. The first one is what you call emotional self-control, emotional self-control, and this concerns itself with being able to manage your impulsive emotions. The second one is trustworthiness, which concerns itself with being honest and taking action in line with various values that you have. The third one is flexibility, being able to adapt to various situations. The fourth one is optimism, being the ability to see opportunities in situations, And fifthly, initiative, taking action when it is necessary. So I run through once again. We have got emotional self-control, we've got trustworthiness, we've got flexibility, we've got optimism, and we have initiative. Now, what are some of the activities that one can do to be able to manage their emotions? So an example would be this. You need to list down that scenario that will elicit a certain emotion in you. That's the first step. And the second step is you come up with a strategy to deal with that emotion. So if I may just use my earlier, an example, is that when I can say I get angry when people make noise in any room. So if I know, if I come across a room where people are making noise, then what do? Maybe I can walk away for a minute. Maybe I can listen to some music on my earphones so that I can calm down and be able to address that emotion of anger that I may be having at that particular time. So these are just some of the many things that you can do to be able to, manage and regulate your emotions. The third thing is what I call social awareness. And social awareness concerns itself with being able to understand and respond to the needs of other people. Just as the word states, how socially aware are you? So it also has very interesting features here. We've got what you call empathy. We have also organizational dynamics, and we have what you call service orientation. So what is empathy? So empathy concerns itself with being able to feel and sense what other people are feeling. Organizational dynamics concerns itself with being able to understand the attitudes and the perceptions of people that you may encounter in a group or in any organization. And thirdly, service orientation concerns itself with being able to sense the needs of other people. So for instance, if you're in the office or you're at home and you go into the kitchen and you're going to get yourself, to fix yourself maybe a cup of coffee or get a glass of water, you may want to ask your colleague if they would also want a glass of water or maybe a cup of coffee. Yeah, so that's the whole idea behind service orientation. So what are some of the examples of someone who has got high social awareness? One who is who is thankful, a student who goes the extra mile, maybe a project team leader who remembers everybody's name, or someone who is who thanks people for the work they've done. So those kind of acts are all touch on social awareness. The fourth component is called relationship management or social skills. So this model, it concerns itself with being able to understand how people relate with one another. It deals with relationships, how we relate with each other. And it has got some very interesting features or competencies. One of them is what you call influence. And here, influence concerns itself with being able to persuade others. We also have inspirational leadership. And inspirational leadership here deals with having a vision in whatever it is that you're doing. We also have what you call being a development agent, one who always wants to grow. And here, being able to take criticism and feedback, and then being a change agent, one who is always willing to bring about change wherever he or she is. Here, we also have conflict management, where you're able to handle conflicts and various disputes. We also have teamwork and collaboration. We're able to work with people in teams. And then we also have got networking and bonding, where you're able now to go out and network with different people and organizations as well. So so thus far, we've looked at what emotions are, what intelligence is, the 4 competency models of EI, which are self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship management, or social skills. Now, I want to bring in another aspect of intelligence called the IQ. And IQ is a score that is derived from various tests that are done. And it's mainly used for either job assessment or to assess one's intellectual abilities. Now, the thing about IQ is a score. It's a score. And within the Kenyan case, we have exams which you call KCP or KCSE. So if you do it and you pass with an A, B, C, D, you're then branded as either intelligent, average, or not very intelligent. Now, that is the difference between IQ and EQ. IQ is a score. EQ is not. EQ is a skill that is continuously learned on a day-to-day basis. For example, I may say, let's say I'm a good communicator, but there's an aspect of communication that I can improve on. So it's a skill that is learned on a day-to-day basis. And that is the difference between IQ and EQ. And also, people with high levels of EQ tend to relate better with people, tend to, even when it comes to workplace, they tend to do pretty well. And generally, they really thrive very well. Now, what are some of the benefits of emotional intelligence? There's so many. I'll mention just but a few. So one is more empathetic. One leads by example. One is able to solve problems more effectively. One works better within teams. One will be able to bring about change in whichever space he or she is in. One will be able to even communicate that much better, both intra and between himself and other people. And the list goes, just go back a bit to the aspect of self-confidence as a competency model of self-awareness. Now, self-confidence is the idea that you have a skill in something, and you know your self-worth. And here I tend to look at it in terms of 3 C's. I think for me, confidence is built on 3 C's. And here my 3 C's are, I call them content. The next is content. And the third is communication. So for me, why I say that is because for you to be confident, you must have something to say, number one. What are you saying? Number two, where are you saying it? that is your context. And number 3, how are you delivering what you're saying? Verbally, number 1, in your presentation, but also how are you presenting yourself, non-verbal. So for instance, how have you presented yourself? How have you dressed? What's your grooming like? So I think for me, those 3 C's are very important when you're looking at one's self-confidence. So all in all, emotional intelligence is the foundation of all key life skills that are out here, be it stress management, problem solving, critical thinking, and decision making. And for us to be effective, we need both EQ and IQ. But many studies have said that EQ literally takes you to the next level. So for instance, IQ, for instance, if you're taking especially when it comes to job adverts, those requirements are the IQ. So you could have, let's say, an advert for, let's say, accountants, and 50 people meet the criteria. So that's the IQ. But when you get into that job, your ability to succeed is more highly dependent on your EQ than your IQ. So in a nutshell, that is what emotional intelligence constitutes. And I'll just once again reiterate what I just talked about. So I've said that we've defined what emotions are, which are signals to the brain that indicate that there's a threat or reward that exists in the environment. We've touched on what intelligence is, which is the ability to learn from experience and to adapt to different circumstances. And we've also defined emotional intelligence as being able to understand and manage your emotions and that of other people so as to be effective and productive. We've looked at the 4 competency models, which are self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and social skills. And we've delved deeper into each one of them. We've looked at the benefits of emotional intelligence. We've looked at IQ and why IQ and EQ are needed. And we've looked at really the benefits of emotional intelligence at large. So with that, I'll come to the end of my presentation. I'd love now to open the floor for questions and discussions. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, this is really great. Thank you, Mr. Albert. And yeah, I don't see any question here, but we can open it to our audience and welcome them to, yes. Please feel free to come in, ask a question or write your question in the box chat and Mr. Albert will answer.
Oh, thank you very much. I see Steve. Thank you very much, Steve. When do you think learning AI begins? I believe learning AI should begin, well, as far as a child can go to school, because they're the basic, simple things from etiquette to manners, things like thank you, how are you doing, good morning. So for me, it should begin as far as a child can be. Thank you for the question, Steve. Anyone else?
If you raise your hand, yes, you can allowed to speak as well. Just raising your hand would allow me to see your hand and then jumping in, just inviting you to jump in and ask your questions. So feel free to use all of the options.
Perhaps, Daud, may you have any questions for me?
Thank you. I just want to ask how the emotional intelligence can help us in terms of reducing anxiety, and that has come from the exams or anxiety from the workplace. People are just working too much hours and feeling like their mind is not like as relaxed. So how we can use that skills to help us manage all of those anxiety that may come from the school, from workplace, and also help us to solve all of those problems.
Thank you very much for that, Dawood. And very true, especially right now with the advent of COVID and the hassles and bustles of life, we have a lot of anxiety and stress that pent up. So the idea is we need to spend time in taking care of ourselves. I insist on self-care. Do something for a minute, that you like. It could be reading a book. Take time out. It could be relaxing. It could be yoga. It could be prayer. Do whatever you do, but be positive though, because not to overindulge like in alcohol or overeating. Those have got negative effects, Just the positive ones. I'll recommend the positive ones. Let me say that. Prayer, others do yoga, others do music, others exercise, but do something for yourself, because you need to be able to, release those tensions you're having. Even share with friends, talk to a friend. Yeah. Or sometimes if you feel that your anxiety is too much, hey, seek professional help. There's no harm in that. So I advise to, do self-care activities, positive ones though, and you'll be good to go.
Great.
Islam, I think various kinds of education from. Very true, Islam. All kinds of formal and informal have a very huge impact on emotional intelligence. That is true. Because you see, like I said earlier on, we go to, a teacher imparts knowledge and skills. And many of the skills that they do impart are emotional intelligence skills. So that is very key. I would, however, also recommend, especially as guardians and parents, to also be doing the same, to expose our children to, aspects of emotional intelligence, how to be a polite person, how to, conduct yourself before people, just the basic things, and that will go a long way in making the children better people as they grow, become big. Yes.
What is the biggest component of emotional intelligence? And the other question, how does emotional intelligence differ from intellectual?
Intellect. I cannot say there's a bigger component of emotional intelligence. All the components are very key for emotional intelligence to exist. And that's why I said emotional intelligence constitutes of the 4 components I mentioned, which is self-awareness. You need to understand and know yourself. Do you know who you are? Do you know your strengths? Do you know your weaknesses? Do you know what makes you tick? What doesn't make you tick? Secondly, do you know how to manage your emotions? And I think for me, that's a very big problem, especially amongst young people I've noticed in the spaces I've worked in, not being able to know how to handle your emotions, especially in certain contexts. So for instance, you could be in the office and you could be a new intern, and maybe a supervisor has said something that you don't like. So you end up now reacting to that, and it won't be a very good look on you, You could end up losing that internship or that job as a whole. So being able to understand how to handle those emotions when they come is very key. That's why I talked of perhaps you want to do something to calm yourself down, either praying or not answering at all. And then the aspect of social awareness, just being able to understand, and respond to people's needs, because we live with people. We are social beings. So being able to understand and respond to people. And the thing about that's a very powerful way of forging relationships. When people see you're aware about them and what they're going through, then they respond to you effectively. And finally, the social skills I mentioned. When you talk of influence, when you talk of inspirational leadership, when you talk of working in teams and collaboration, when you talk of change agent and wanting to develop other people, all these are very key. In fact, these skills and the social skills are if you've noticed, they're very key skills of leaders. Because as a leader, you must be influential. You must inspire people. You must purpose to develop. You must purpose to change. You must purpose to solve a problem and solve conflicts, work in teams and collaborate with people. So all the components are very, very, very key. So there's no more important component than the other. To your second question, how does emotional intelligence differ from intellect? Intellect, from where I sit, really is more attuned to it's more of the academia bit, being able to absorb and retain information and therefore produce it or reproduce it, which is fine. And it's more aligned to the IQ I was talked about. And like I said, the IQ is a score. So it is decided. You're either intelligent, average, or not intelligent, as far as that is concerned. But emotional intelligence is a skill that can be learned. So for instance, you can say that you're a good communicator, that's fine, but there could be an aspect you could improve on, maybe your verbal communication and nonverbal communication. So you learn every day. So that's the stark difference between emotional intelligence and intellect.
Great. And one more question here is talking about what factor of emotional intelligence that can help us create more balance in life. So we have.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
We have what factor of emotional intelligence that can help us create more balance in life?
What factor of emotional intelligence that can help us create more balance in life?
Yeah.
All. I say all of them. That is self-awareness, social awareness, self-regulation, and social skills. All of them. All those factors. Because
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because like I reiterated, you see, all those things they make us people, like when I say self-awareness, you must be able to understand yourself, number one, because you don't understand yourself, then it's difficult to even try to go out and engage with people. So that's how now social awareness comes in. And when you're out there with people, you need to know how to relate with them. So you need the social skills. So that's where aspects of teamwork comes in, collaboration, partnerships, inspirational leadership comes in. And remember, as a human being, we also have got emotions. So you need to know how to regulate them and know how to handle them based on the context that we are in. So you do not perhaps lead to, maybe conflicts or unwanted conflicts.
Great. There are other two questions. Does emotional intelligence vary across cultures, or is it just a matter of one identifying or adaptability? And if you have any recommendation for books for folks to read, also you can talk about that.
Okay, I'll start with the first question. Does EI vary across cultures? Yes. Let me say this. Emotional intelligence is, it's connected to our brain. It's so, in a way, yes, because you see, culture affects us. So culture will determine so many things. It will determine what we know, what we don't know, how we behave, how we do not behave. So in essence, in a way, it will. But having said that, for you to be able to be effective and be emotionally intelligent, you need to keep in mind the four aspects. I'll keep on repeating it, the four aspects of self-awareness, social awareness, self-regulation, and social skills. It's true, it could vary because I think some cultures may have different ways of doing things, but for you to be able to have that level of emotional intelligence, those four key components are very key for you to have in mind. And then there's a question, any book recommendations? Yes, there's one by Daniel Goleman, Why EQ Matters More Than IQ. That's a good book to start with. You can start with that one. It's also available on PDF. So the name, if I may just repeat the book I mentioned, Why EQ Matters More Than IQ by Daniel Goleman. I'll write it on the chat box. I'll write it on the chat box.
I have a question just coming from remembering some of interviews that I had before. Whenever you have a job interview, there are questions related to emotional intelligence. So for example, the question asking you about your future plan 5 years from now, how you see yourself in particular career, a question about your weakness and your strengths. All of these, I think they are part of emotional intelligence. So if I'm gonna have an interview, how I can prepare myself, not only to answer those, but also how I can like embed it and use those questions to help me also to identify my weakness and also my strengths, and also to build up more skills.
That's a mouthful, Dawu. Okay. To the first part of what you had asked about the interview question, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Excuse me. I think for me, that question is very connected to what you want to where you want to be. So really, literally, it means as you're going into this interview, you need to know where you want to be in the first place. Where do you see yourself? So go in there, not just for that job, but there must be an end game. What's the end game? You see, that job is not your end game. Where do you want to be? But also you must be very, I say, tactful in the sense that it must be aligned to your area of, to several things, to the needs of that particular organization. That is if you want to be there, okay? And what you want to achieve, okay? So whatever response you will give, you must think it through, because if you don't see yourself in that organization within the next 5 years, then your answer must be clear. You must think through your answer very carefully, okay? Maybe you can say, oh, within the next 5 years, maybe I foresee myself heading or doing something, etc. You know? So you have to really think through exactly where you want to be. If it is that organization, you then have to align your vision to the needs of that organization, plus also what you're going to bring on board. What unique skills are you going to bring on board that will set you aside from everybody else? Have I answered you? Have I answered that question for you, Dawu?
Yeah, it's clear. And then you can react into the weakness and its strengths part. Yes. Identify those things using the emotional intelligence.
Yes, now here's the thing about that. To me, that is directed towards self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's why self-awareness is so key. You must know, what are you good at? Number one. What are you not good at? And for you to know what you're good at is for you to know, okay, this is what I'm good at. I can enhance it. I can strengthen it. If you know what you're not good at, where your weak points are, then you can know how you can improve on them. Okay? But the thing is, especially in a job interview, never ever just speak about your strengths. You also have got weaknesses. But there's a way of crafting your weaknesses. Don't say I'm lazy. Never say. You know, it could be a weakness, but there's a way of presenting it. You know, I don't know what you can. I don't know what you can say. Maybe you can say that at times I could be a bit. When it gets to around 2 p.m., I may be a bit tired, but I know with continuous, engagement, I'll be active or something. Just find words, you need to figure out, but don't just present your strength, because as human beings, we've got strengths and weaknesses. And I think in any job interview, they want to ask you about your strength and your weakness. So for me, that's self-awareness. And maybe they will be very happy to share with you some exercises that you can try that can help you become more self-aware. I don't know, are you open to that, Dawu? I think there's a question here to be.
Yeah, we have 2 questions here from audience.
Yes.
One from, I guess, Volin or somebody, Columbia Global Center, and the other one is from, Tina. Tina is asking, is emotional intelligence very individualistic and personal in the work? Or what ways can emotional intelligence be encouraged in group setting? In particular, she's referring to family units, workplace, etc.
So for the first part of the question, is EQ very individualistic and personal endeavor? Yes, it is. Because remember, it must start with you. Number one, you must be self-aware. So yes, it starts with you. Because from you, it then progresses onto the community, then it then expands and goes on to the society. Because now you then become like an ambassador of some sort, where you're almost preaching EI through the various concepts and attributes that it has, as I'd mentioned, whether it is teamwork, collaboration, things like that. So yes, it is. In the second part, how or what ways can EQ be encouraged in group settings, that is family units and workplaces? I think people can be very innovative in how they do their things, and I think for me, one thing, what I would recommend, especially in workplaces, are what I call, just debriefing sessions where you just meet as a team or as colleagues and just discuss and just find out how you're feeling today, how are you doing, how are you feeling, are you having any challenges, and then you figure out how you can help each other. So that acts as a form of group therapy, which I think is very good, because in that way you find people are able to talk, people are able to share, and through that you'll be able to assist, help one another, and you'll also be able to identify those, you may be able to pick up on some serious cases that may require further intervention, whether it is through counseling or maybe other, even medical, yeah. And how can it be encouraged? I think for me, EQ can be encouraged, just like I said, you be innovative in how you're going about it. So you can just say you want to meet up and just have a discussion on something that's affecting us. It could be something as simple as how to manage stress. Yes. So for me, discuss it, bring EQ, but break it down into concepts people can understand. Because EQ is such a big term. Break it down and say, today we want to talk about stress management, we want to talk about, let's say, how to work in teams, how to solve problems effectively, how to be a leader of purpose, how to find your vision, how to be resilient. So you break it down. You break it down into concepts that many people can understand. I've seen the question.
Yeah, from David, you can answer that one.
Is emotional intelligence proportional to drug abuse? E.g., the lower the emotional intelligence, the higher the possibility of drug abuse. Okay, we need to unpack these terms now. Now, first of all, drug abuse. It may have some link, but it is not direct. Because when I know it may have, there may be some link in a way, because for the factors that bring about that make you abuse drugs, there's so many factors. It could be personal, it could be peer influence, it could be mass media, it could be experimental, So in a way, yes, but having said that, I would not say EI per se, but I would say perhaps maybe individual, and look at now the individual and his or her context, his or her context, and maybe how now emotional intelligence can come in to help this person get out of the abusive, to get out of abusing the drugs. Yes. Yes, Kinanjo, I hope I've answered you.
Yeah, yes, you've answered me correctly.
Okay, sir. Okay. Any other comment or question? Yes,
how does emotional intelligence apply to leadership and being an effective leader?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Dewo. Remember, who is a leader? A leader is somebody who, someone who brings people together or is taking people towards a certain direction, you know, has brought people together for a common purpose, you know. So how it applies is as follows. Remember, there are components of EI that I talked about, and under relationship management, I talked of features such as inspiration, visionary, development agent, change agent, conflict management, building bonds, and then teamwork. And as a leader, all these 7 components are very key. But aside from that, remember, even as a leader, you must be self-aware. You must know who you are. You must be able to know people's needs. You also must be able to know and understand how to manage your emotions. So once again, we go back to the 4 components. But now under leadership, I'll center on the 3. But for the fourth model, that is on relationship management, those 7 features I mentioned will be an added advantage for a leader. Because as a leader, like I said, you have to influence and inspire people, work in teams, be a change agent, develop people, work in teams, and form bonds and linkages with people. And when you do that, you now become an effective leader.
How can one affect backbone in the midst of all the push and the pull, expectation, negative energies, responsibilities, etc.? So the question is asking to reflect on the emotional intelligence.
How can one have a thick backbone in the midst of all the challenges? This is what I say. Number 1, remember, at the end of the day, know your purpose. What is your purpose? Number 1. Number 2, remember, you cannot solve everything. Number 3, when there are these negative energies coming your way, and negative energies have got ways of detouring us or distracting us from our goals, find ways of getting rid of that so that you can be centered and so that you're able now to, engage and be productive. Because the thing about those energies, if you let them get to you, they not only affect you mentally, emotionally, and physically, but even your output will be affected, and hence you won't be as productive.
Yeah, Grace, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Grace. I'm based in Naivasha, Kenya.
Hi, Grace.
And, hi. When somebody mentions emotional intelligence, it's my favorite topic that I teach or train as well on. And yeah, and thank you for sharing your insights. I was just coming in when a question came on about drug abuse, and I thought we can relate, Albert, when we look at the psychosexual stages.
Oh, the psychosexual for Freud, eh?
Yes. And if you look at the stages, right from 0 to 12, we were taught about fixation.
Yes.
Is it possible somebody was angry at some point and perhaps it got to the unconscious, and then when he becomes an adult, it manifests itself as an adult? So somebody, and that bit of self-awareness that comes in. where this person will see a counselor psychologist so that they can be helped to unwrap whatever that has been buried into the unconscious. Some people do not understand themselves until they see a counselor or psychologist. So maybe perhaps to advise, or rather to tell the audience or the participants about understanding ourselves right from our formative years. It is very crucial when we're looking at emotional intelligence. And actually, during my trainings, I usually start off from the psychosexual stages, and then now coming to emotional intelligence as an adult. So I think we can relate well, Albert, when you talk about the psychosexual stages. So probably at one point you may think of looking at the psychosexual stages, and then we come from the formative now to the current, to the present. And people to understand themselves perhaps I may have been fixated at some point, and that is why I'm not able to have social skills. When we are being brought up, if there's somebody who is perhaps a Kenyan, we were taught about cha baba na cha mama. Remember, Albert? I don't know if.
Yes, I remember. So very well, we played it.
Yes, the cha baba and cha mama really used to help us actually acquire social skills. If you're confined in a house, probably you'll not be able to socially be interactive with people out there, or maybe in the workplace. And that is why somebody cannot understand himself or herself. I just thought of sharing that. Yeah, maybe you can have some input into that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that. I think that's an amazing insight, and definitely it's something we look into. And even moving forward, if you not mind, maybe we can also reach out to you on the same. Is that okay with you, Grace?
Yeah, that's fine.
As you plan our upcoming episodes, would that be fine with you?
Yeah, that's okay.
Great.
Very okay. Thank you, Albert. Okay.
Grace.
Yes.
Do you mind leaving your contact details on the chat box?
Okay, let me write it right away.
Kindly.
Okay.
Any other question, comment? I've seen a question here. How does one raise children who are strongly emotionally and are not overly sensitive to external factors? First of all, you must be strong emotionally yourself. And here I believe you mean emotional intelligence. You know, children don't do as you say, they do as you do. So if they see you exhibiting some of these traits, solving problems, managing, not busting out when they do something small, you're there on top of your lungs, screaming and yelling at them, calling them all sorts of names. So it must start with you. It must start with you first. Like I said, children do as you do, not as you say. Now the part on overly sensitive to external factors. You see, that is dependent on so many things. It's dependent on the child's personality, because personality types, and then also the socialization and upbringing of this child. Yes. So what I would recommend, it's important to let your child know about what they're likely to meet out there, issues around, life, what life looks like in terms of relationships, in terms of the various psychosocial issues they'll come across, with issues around drugs and substance abuse, issues on mental health, gender-based violence. Of course, it must be targeted based on the age, because then again, you have to give information in piecemeal, sensitive information based on their age. But I think there's need now to address, especially right now in the era we are at, there's need to have these discussions, yeah. Any other? Okay, if none, maybe they will. Back to you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we supposed to finish at in next 15 minutes, but if there's no question, I'm asking Pauline, should we proceed the next 15 minutes or should we end here?
If there are no more questions, we can give to Lillian to close.
Well, I will return it back to Albert to conclude. As you know, all the good things come to an end, and this is the end of the session. It's not the end of the series, but we are waiting also other topic related to emotional intelligence in future. And thank you for Balin, for everybody here who was helping and participating in the discussion, in particular our audience. And thank you. We are looking forward also to see you in next webinars. And let me just give it to Albert to conclude this session.
Thanks. For me, on my part, is that I'm very happy. My aim is that now we have a good grasp of what emotional intelligence is. Once again, to recap, we know we've defined emotional intelligence. We've looked at the 4 competency models, which is self-awareness, social awareness, self-regulation, and social skills. We've looked at the benefits. We've looked at the links between IQ and EQ. And you said why EQ is important. And we've also emphasized the need to, be aware about ourselves. I've also emphasized the aspect of self-confidence and how there are 3 C's. These are my 3 C's. I call them content, confidence, and communication. And I said that for you to be self-confident and know your worth, you must know what to say, you must know where you're saying it, and you must know how to present what you're saying. And your communication in terms of what you're saying, your words, and how you present yourself. And I say when you do that, you're on your way to be more emotionally intelligent. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming episodes. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pauline.
Well, thank you, Albert and Dawood. That was great work. I've enjoyed myself, especially the session where you told us to take some deep breath and think over the engagements and emotions you have had during the day. That was quite unique, and it's something that we should do every day. I'm looking forward to more to the upcoming series, and looking forward to seeing all of us. Thank you for our audiences. We really appreciate your participation and commitment to our center and even interest to the programs that we bring to you. Please follow us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter at CGC Nairobi. They'll be posted on the chat. Please click on that and do follow us so that you can see the programs that will be in the pipeline. Again, I say thank you, asante sana, as we say in Kenya, and looking forward to see you, and bye.